Murdoch goes on to argue, because of the woman's biological function of childbearing and nursing, the woman ends up tied to the home, and because of her physique, she is less able to do strenuous tasks. Murdoch studied 224 societies, both pre-industrial societies and more modern and industrial societies. He found that there was a sexual division of labour present in all societies. So he argued that it was the best way, the most natural way of organising society, because it was universal. Every single society had the same sexual division of labour. This has been contested, however, by feminists, and we'll be looking at Oakley, who evaluates Murdoch's claim. Parsons, as you know, is the other main functionalist, as well as Durkheim. He argued that women have an expressive role in the family. That means they take on a nurturing, caring role, look after the children, and they're generally the homemaker. While the man had an instrumental role, the instrumental role being the breadwinner and also the disciplinarian in the family. Because the women bore and nursed the children, she was able to provide warmth, security and emotional support, not just for the children, but also for the man. Not only does the woman apply these expressive qualities to her children, but she also applies them to her husband. In this way, the woman principally functions to socialise children. That's the main function of a woman's role in the home. Socialise children into the main norms and values of society, ensure that they are brought up as stable adults and can go out into the world. But she also functions to stabilise adult personalities. So there is a significant amount of stress experienced at work. Functionalists recognise that, but they say that's fine, because when the man gets home, the family acts as like a warm bath for the man. The woman is there to look after the man's needs and to get rid of or eliminate any stress. The man can return to the cosy, warm family and feel at ease. So the man has an instrumental role. He acts as a breadwinner and competes in an achievement-orientated society. It can lead to stress and anxiety, but the tension is relieved by the family and the female, who provides love, consideration and understanding. Parsons too argues that this division of labour is necessary for the family to function, and the family is absolutely integral to the function of society. So remember, functionalists see the family as being the core, the heart of society. So without the sexual division of labour, society can't function. So Oakley criticises the functionalist argument. And if you're going to evaluate functionalism, you would definitely need to include Oakley. She argues that gender is socially constructed. We should know what social construction means, but just for those who have forgotten, I will remind you. So social construction is something which is created by society. It's not a fact. It is not natural. So basically, Oakley argues that it's not an inevitable feature that women should be the homemaker, and that her biological differences do not predispose her to this role. The behaviour of males and females is learnt. It is not the inevitable result of biology. But she argues this biological difference has been used to legitimise women's inequality. It's been made to support the idea that women should be an equal because they have less biological strength, because they bear children. However, this is not the only endpoint that could occur due to women's biology. So an example of how women's biology has been used to legitimise women's inequality could be maternity pay and maternity leave, for example. So it's generally not questioned that in UK society, women, due to her biological differences, due to the fact that she is able to breastfeed children, obviously she gives birth to the child, that will lead to her having to look after the children. And maternity pay is constructed so the woman has to stay at home, because the maternity pay, despite changes that have taken place, the woman has to take the first 6 months of maternity leave. It's not questioned that this occurs because women give birth and therefore it is natural. Oakley would argue that this law or this policy makes women's inequality appear fair. And if we look at the reasons why women are unequal, part of the reason is because they take primary responsibility, and they take the burden of looking after the children. So Oakley argues, until women are freed from domestic burdens, they will be unable to compete on an equal footing with men. It is impossible. She also looked at the same societies that Murdoch looked at, and she found that in that same sample of 224, lumbering was done either exclusively by women or shared by both sexes. 36 societies in which women are solely there were 36 societies in which women are solely responsible for land clearance, and 38 in which cooking was a shared activity. Although this is still low, she argued that the gender division is not universal in all societies, and she disputed Murdoch's findings and therefore argued that gender differences are not a natural and inevitable result of biological differences. So Oakley examines a number of societies in which biology has little or no influence on women's roles. The Mbuti Pygmies, for example, are a hunting and gathering society who live in the Congo rainforests. They have no specific rules by the division of labour by sex. Among the Australian Aborigines of Tasmania, women were responsible for seal hunting, fishing and catching possums. Women form an important part of armed forces in many countries, although not ours, particularly in China, Russia, Cuba and Israel. In India, women work on building sites, and in some Asian and Latin countries, they work in mines. You may be aware in Great Britain that women still do not work on the front line. We're now going to refer back to functionalism. This focuses more particularly at women in the workplace and why, when they get to the workplace, they are unequal, whereas the functionalist argument, traditional functionalist argument, basically argues that women's role is in the home. So functionalists argue that basically women lack commitment to paid employment, and that is generally why they suffer disadvantage in the labour market, because they're not committed to the jobs that they do. And the reason why they're not committed may in part be due to childbirth. Women don't invest their time in undertaking lengthy periods of education and training. They choose to take career breaks or work part-time to combine work with raising a family. They are less likely to seek promotions because their heart is not in their job. They are of less value to employers than their more highly trained and skilled male counterparts. Women are less likely to be promoted and are paid less because they are less value to the employer. Their lack of training, skills, qualifications and experience results from the demands of childcare, creates disadvantages for them in the labour market, and as a result they take on lower paid part-time work, or they leave the workplace and come back part-time after childcare. Now obviously there are clear problems with this view. As you know, Society has changed. Some women are choosing not to have children. Some women may have stay-at-home husbands. So this is out of date. We will now look at how human capital theory links to traditional functionalism. If we consider the idea of role allocation and meritocracy, the reason why women are in low-paid jobs is because they do not work hard enough to get into the high-paid jobs. So they are allocated roles, lower-paid work, on the basis of a meritocracy. So please don't see the theory of gender as a separate topic to the theory of class. You need to be integrating all of the theories from class into your knowledge on gender. This unit should get progressively easier as we keep going over topics and linking in the other areas of this specification. Catherine Hakim is a fairly controversial sociologist, and we'll be looking at another theory which looks at the idea of erotic capital. We'll be looking at that in more detail over the next few lessons. So Catherine Hakim actually supports generally the functionalist argument, and Catherine Hakim would be used to evaluate the feminist view. So Catherine Hakim argues that women actually have a particular preference to whether they work, or to whether they have a family, or to whether they take on part-time work and juggle part-time work with bringing up a family. As a result, her theory is called preference theory. So she argues inequality stems from personal preferences and rational choices which are designed to maximise family income. So women make decisions and they generally have a choice as to what they want to do, and they make this choice dependent on whether they need to work for the family or whether they can afford to stay at home. So there's now better opportunities for women, and this is due to 5 key changes. And these key 5 changes have led to women being able to make these choices. So first of all, the contraceptive revolution. So in the 70s, many women were taking the pill. It is argued that this created freedoms for women. That is debatable. But generally, it's argued that the contraceptive revolution enabled women to control childbirth and to decide when they were to have children. So if they didn't want to have children, they could go into work. Equal opportunities revolution. As you know, there were many equal opportunities again in the 1970s. Equal opportunities legislation created more equality for women. The expansion of white-collar jobs. There are now more opportunities for women to go into white-collar work, whereas perhaps when there were lots of manual type jobs, women were even more disadvantaged. The expansion of part-time jobs and flexible work. So there's now, if women want to have a job but have a child at the same time, there's opportunity for them to do that. Expansion of increasing affluence. There's more wealth, and so women don't have to go to work if they don't want to. So Catherine Hakim argues that there's groups of women, and they've started to choose different lifestyles. 3 different groups emerge. The first group is adaptive women. Adaptive women combine paid work and family without prioritising one over the other. They want the best of both worlds and are attracted to flexible or part-time jobs. The work-centred woman who decides to focus on career development and fit family life around this, they are a minority group, 20%, and this is why women are dominant in the workplace. And then finally, the home-centred woman who prefers to do paid work unless there's a shortage of money, and she argues this accounts for 20% of women. So the adaptive women account for 60%. Catherine Hakim's theory is controversial and has been criticised by feminists.